So the key assumption that I make, and as a former military officer, a military planner, you have to make assumptions when you don't have perfect information. But the assumption I make is that Kim Jong Un will never negotiate away his nuclear program. Despite all of our efforts, we've failed for 4 decades to reach an agreement to truly denuclearize, because he must have his nuclear weapons in order to survive. And so unification is really the only viable path to denuclearization. We must keep that in mind. Now, we must understand the nature, the objectives, and the strategy of the Kim family regime. He uses political warfare to undermine South Korea, to subvert it, but also to drive a wedge in the South Korean-US military alliance. He uses blackmail diplomacy, which is the use of threats, increased tensions, and provocations to extort political and economic concessions from the South, from the US, from the international community. And he uses advanced military technology, primarily nuclear weapons and missiles, but other long-range systems, to support blackmail diplomacy and political warfare, and to use those, if necessary, to support his campaign plan against the South, to dominate the South under the rule of the guerrilla dynasty and Gulag state. Survival is the vital national interest of the North, but we can't stop there. That's not sufficient to understand. For Kim Jong Un, the regime, survival requires unification, requires domination, and that's why they're using subversion, coercion, extortion, and the use of force, and preparing to use the use of force. The condition they need to be successful is to split the ROK-US alliance, to drive US forces off the peninsula. It's divide and conquer. Now, Kim would like to negotiate arms control. He would like to be treated like the former Soviet Union and strategic arms limitation talks, strategic arms reduction talks, because that means he will keep his nuclear weapons, and it means the success of his political warfare strategy. And so we cannot play into his hands. Now, we're at an inflection point. Last year, Kim Jong Un said that South Korea is the main enemy, that they are 2 countries, and he no longer seeks peaceful unification, which I think if you ask Hyun-sung, that this confuses the Korean people in the North, because they have lived for 8 decades longing for unification. And the more that they know and understand about South Korea, the more that they would like to live in a unified Korea, to live like their brothers and sisters in the South. But Kim Jong Un has taken that away. So for South Korea, it's really an opportunity to seize the moral high ground. This new unification doctrine is predicated on freedom, individual liberty, human rights, liberal democracy, and that's what the people deserve. And of course, the United States, South Korea, and civil society, people like us, can contribute to this unification process. We can redefine the strategy and focus on a free and unified Korea. Now, my proposal, and what I have proposed and have been working on through the Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, and now Trump administration, I've been proposing this for a long time, is a 2+3 strategy. The 2 traditional strategies of deterrence and defense. As I said, we must prevent war. We must prevent war. But we also have to stop North Korea's global illicit activities. We've got to conduct really a strategic strangulation campaign to cut Kim Jong Un off from the resources that he is extorting and stealing from around the world. But we need a radical 3 new strategies. First is a human rights upfront approach. This is about helping empower the North Korean people through knowledge of their individual human rights. Again, it's a moral imperative, but it's a national security issue. An information campaign is how we have to communicate with the Korean people in the North. We've got to get information into the North. We're doing some things, and a lot of people are working on it. The North Korean diaspora sends balloons into the North and the like, but so much more can be done. I would love for a Starlink, low Earth orbit satellite, to be able to connect to the 8 million smartphones that are in North Korea, but are cut off from the outside world. And then lastly, the pursuit of a free and unified Korea. Now, the rationale for human rights, again, Kim Jong Un denies human rights in order to remain in power. And educating the people in the North is really the priority. And one of the basic human rights we should focus on is in the UN Declaration, Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Article 21, which basically says that all people have the right to self-determination of government. We have it here, the Koreans in the South have it, but the Koreans in the North have never experienced that. And so that's a fundamental human right, and we must help them understand that. Unification, of course, aligns with South Korea's liberal democracy, with their constitution, and it's the right thing to do. And it will be an example for the world. It will be a beacon. If we can help solve the Korea question, the unnatural division of the Korean Peninsula, it can be an inspiration for other conflicts around the world, that the worst, most intractable conflict can be solved. 4 pathways to unification: war, we don't want that; regime collapse, we have to be prepared for it, but we don't ask for it. We want peaceful unification, and we must plan for peaceful unification. South Korea must plan for peaceful unification, and we must support their efforts. But it is regime transformation that is really optimal. That's internal change by the Korean people, where new emerging leadership who are armed with information from the outside, armed with understanding the policies of what unification will be like, and armed with the ideas of freedom, and to know that if they unify with the South, that is what will bring their survival and the survival of all Korean people in the North. And so people say, but Kim Jong Un will never peacefully unify. That is true. He will not allow that unless he is in charge, unless he is dominant. But if there is regime change inside by the Korean people in the North, and they want peaceful unification, then we're in a position to do that. But peaceful unification, even if it comes through war or regime collapse, the planning for that will still be relevant and important, because everything that we have to do for peaceful unification planning, which is the most complex, the integration of 2 economies, 2 political systems, 2 militaries, 2 divergent cultures, all of that planning will still play out whether there's war or regime collapse, and again, hopefully, if there is change and transformation inside the North. Our Declaration of Independence, all men, all people are created equal. We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That had a profound influence on the Koreans in the South and the South Korean 1919 Declaration of Independence, which is a brilliant document. I urge everyone to read it. It is profound. Well, that had influence on Mahatma Gandhi and their pursuit of independence in India and his peaceful and his nonviolent resistance. And Gandhi influenced Martin Luther King, who was influenced by our Declaration of Independence as well. And so we have this virtuous circle of independence and unification. And now in the center we have the Korean Dream. I urge you to read that. And that Korean Dream is really the next step in that circle of virtuous circle of unification and independence. And so, ultimately, we want to see not a North Korea and not a South Korea. We want to see those go away. We want to see a new nation, a united Republic of Korea, which I would say the acronym, the abbreviation of the U-R-O-K, which I would pronounce as U-ROK. All right, so to conclude, we need a human rights-focused, information-driven strategy. The Korea question, as I mentioned, it's come from the 1953 armistice. The military commanders stopped the war. There was an armistice, a ceasefire, a temporary cessation of hostilities. And in paragraph 60, it says that the political leaders have to come together within 90 days to solve the Korea question, the unnatural division of the peninsula. They realized that there's no military solution, okay? There's got to be a political solution, and that is peaceful unification, okay? So the armistice said 90 days. It's been 70 years. 72 years, actually, and we have failed so far. But this effort must be led by the Korean people, okay? It must be Korean-led, done by the Korean people, but we have a responsibility to help. We as Americans and we as citizens of the world, the international community, to help seek unification first, then denuclearization. The path to unification is through human rights.